Hello there, good morning and welcome to this, the WP Builds Weekly WordPress News. This is number 125. It covers the WordPress news for the week commencing the 27th of July 2020, and it was published on Monday the 3rd of August 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and the usual housekeeping just before we begin. If you wouldn't mind going over to our website, wpbuilds.com, you'll find a whole ton of WordPress related content. We produce a podcast episode every single Thursday. We also produce this news episode that you're listening to. That comes out on a Monday very early in the morning, 7 a.m. UK time, so that people who possibly might be commuting have a chance of listening to it. We also do a live version of this show at 2 p.m. You can find that in our Facebook group. I'll mention that in a moment, but also at wpbuilds.com/live. This week, we've also got the 7th episode of Sabrina Zidane and I's journey. We're calling it Plugin Startup 0 to 10,000 installs. It's our exploration of what it's like to launch and promote a WordPress plugin. We're coming from the point of view of naivety. It's not us preaching, it's us learning along the way and hopefully getting some comments from you guys in the audience. You can find that also at wpbuilds.com/live or in the Facebook group. That's going to be happening on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Also, another live, crikey, 3:30 p.m. this Wednesday. I'll be chatting with Peach Neri. We do our monthly UI UX session. If you would like to submit your site and get some free, really credible advice from Peach about what might need tweaking to make it, well, as UI UX friendly as possible, then head over to wpbuilds.com/UI and submit the form, and we can see you in the same place, wpbuilds.com/live or in the Facebook group, 3:30 this coming Wednesday, all in UK time. Another couple of things to mention, wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Over there you'll find ways for us to keep in touch with you. There's newsletters. There is our Facebook group, which you can find at wpbuilds.com/Facebook. Nearly 2,700 very, very polite and friendly WordPressers. I would urge you to join that group. Also, wpbuilds.com/deals if you want to find a deal. They're always there, filterable, searchable. They never go away, so if it's, something that you need this week, go and check that out first. And then finally, what about wpbuilds.com/advertise if you'd like to support the podcast and at the same time get your product or service in front of a WordPress-specific audience? A bit like these guys. Are you tired of unreliable or slow hosting? If so, check out Kinsta, who takes managed WordPress hosting to the next level. Powered by the Google Cloud Platform, all their plans include PHP 7, SSH and 24/7 expert support. Try a demo for free. 60 days you'll get. You can find all that at kinsta.com. And A/B split test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time, like in a couple of minutes? Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. The best part, it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Check it out at absplittest.com. Okay, thanks for bearing with us during our bits of housekeeping. Now, let's get stuck into the news, shall we? Just to say that each week we put a show notes together. You can find that possibly if you've got an email. All the links will be in that email. But if you go over to the wpbuilds.com website, you can find at the very top of the webpage a section called Archives, and go to News Archive and you'll find this post in there. It's number 125 and all the links for everything that we talk about can be found in there. The first section, as always, is WordPress Core, and over at wordpress.org we have news that WordPress 5.5 has a release candidate. This is the first release candidate. There should be a few in very rapid succession because WordPress 5.5 is slated for August the 11th. This does seem actually to be a bit of a Titanic update. That is to say 5.5 is not this release candidate, but the intention here is to get the current version of WordPress in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Just a very final stage to see if there's any things which might have gone astray, something got missed, something broke, who knows. But if you'd like to become a WordPress beta tester, please go and check the page out. It's the first link in the show notes. Now, I've got a little bit more about 5.5 because over on WordPress Tavern, Justin Tadlock has penned an article entitled Upcoming in WordPress 5.5, Features and Changes Theme Authors Should Know About. And it's exactly that. If you are a theme author or a plugin author, should we say, you may want to look at this. It is also a bit of a good read if you're just curious about what's coming in 5.5 because it lays out all of that in a really easy to read way. It's probably going to take you about 3 or 4 minutes to get from top to bottom, but the big features are that WordPress 5.5 will finally introduce automatic updates for plugins and themes. This is good news, I think, for the security of the platform, but also I suppose there's a few gotchas in here. If you are a theme author and you are not really aware that from now, well, very soon, in a couple of weeks, WordPress 5.5 will enable themes to automatically update, you might want to take extra steps to make sure that upon your theme being updated, things are actually going to be working correctly. So there's also HTML changes for custom logos. Justin writes, as part of an accessibility related ticket for WordPress 5.5, the core get custom logo and the custom logo functions will no longer output a link around the logo image. So theme authors, you may need to do something about that to make the logo appear. Also, block patterns have arrived. If you're familiar with page builders, you'll know that it's possible to drag in pre-configured layouts. So for example, it might be, let's say, a testimonial layout, or it might be a hero layout with a button on the right and some bold text on the left, for example. Well, all of that is going to be rolling out in WordPress 5.5. It's called block patterns, and it is the ability for these pre-configured blocks to come into WordPress. And this is going to be absolutely fascinating. It puts WordPress firmly in the kind of page builder space as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure there'll be a massive proliferation of theme developers and designers getting on board this and building out lots and lots of interesting stuff in the near future. We've also got some information about line heights and custom units. The block editor has 2 new tools, Justin says, for end users to take advantage of: custom line heights and custom units. Theme authors can opt into allowing to edit the line height of paragraphs and the headings with custom line height theme support flag. They can also allow users to switch between various units, such as when defining the block's cover height with the custom units flag. There's also information about an accessible widgets navigation option and also template function updates as well. So it's all in the article, link in the show notes. Staying with Justin over on WordPress Tavern, we have a piece. Gutenberg 8.6 adds cover block video positioning and updates block patterns. Gutenberg 8.6 landed, as Justin says, quietly last week. And quietly because really the whole purpose of this release was to squash bugs for the aforementioned release of WordPress 5.5 on August the 11th, just over a week and a half from now. So what have we got that's new? Well, we have the option now to add a focal point selector for video covers. That is to say, in previous iterations, there's been this little option to drag a circle around an image so that you can decide which bit of the image should kind of be in the viewport. So you might have a very large image, but you really want to focus on the piece that's in the bottom left of that image. Well, you can do that. You haven't been able to do that with videos, however, and now you can. Exactly the same process. You use the focal point picker, and that's located under the Media Settings tab when you're in Gutenberg, and you can drag around in that way. Also, as we just mentioned, he goes in a bit more detail about the updated block patterns that we spoke about. There's also now the site icon used in full screen mode. Previously, we had the WordPress logo. Did find it a little bit confusing, its purpose, and now you'll get your own site icon in there as well. So that's just a nice little UI tweak. So big news in WordPress Core this week. There's an awful lot coming down the road. As I said at the top, I think this is one of the biggest updates to WordPress with significant changes since I've been speaking about it. So it's very, very exciting indeed. Okay, moving on now to the community section. I've got 2 pieces for you this week. The first is all about Big Orange Heart. Sarah Gooding writes on WordPress Tavern, Big Orange Heart opens 2020 remote work, wellbeing and mental health survey. So Big Orange Heart, which was formerly WP and Up, has now opened its survey. I think this is a really good thing to do. It'll take you no more than about 5 minutes. I have already completed it, and the community in Big Orange Heart is designed to help people just like you who are listening to this podcast, to help each other support themselves in their mental health needs, their business needs, and so on. And they need information about exactly where that support should be aimed at. Last year's survey, the 2019 version, did bring up some really interesting data, some of it a little bit on the alarming side. So, for example, 8% of the WordPress community have had suicidal thoughts in the last 12 months. 47% stated their workplace makes them feel anxious, and 56% of the WordPress community works alone. So they want to have some more data about whether these statistics still remain true and how they can target their support. As I said, it's very simple a very simple survey to fill out. It's got a really nice UI. It's almost like talking to a chatbot. It's really intuitive, very easy to do, and it takes just a couple of minutes, and it will help this charity, which I firmly believe is well worth having around. Next up, we have the sad news that WordCamp US has been cancelled. Sarah Gooding on WordPress Tavern writing, WordPress US 2020 cancelled due to pandemic stress and online event fatigue. So, as with WordCamp Europe, which has decided to cancel the in-person event for next year, it's the same now with WordCamp US. They've decided to cancel entirely the October 27th to the 29th event. But when I say entirely, I mean also the online version of the event. They've cited the fact that people are getting a little bit fatigued. A lot of their lives are now in these kind of events. People doing Zoom calls and working from home and staring at the screen perhaps more than ever. So they've decided that this is the best decision. And they wrote, "It is with heavy hearts that we have made the decision to cancel this year's WordCamp US event. In light of the continued pandemic, online event fatigue for attendees, organisers and volunteers, and the desire for WordCamp camp experiences to be traditional WordCamp experiences, we have made the difficult decision to stop this year's planning and cancel WordCamp US 2020. Now, it's brought a mixed reaction, according to this article. Some of the organisers, people who've invested their time, are a little bit frustrated that they've put so much time into it only to have that pulled from under their feet. One of the commentators in this piece said they'd spent probably something in the region of 100 hours and they felt that they weren't given enough warning. Others, on the other hand, are saying the opposite. At least now we know we've got clarity, we can move forward and we can think about what will be in the future. Now, interestingly, the State of the Word address, which Matt Mullenweg does at WordCamp US each year, is going to have a different focus. It may well be that it is a dedicated event, presumably just Matt recording something and then broadcasting out. And it may also be tied into a 24-hour contributor event, which is really interesting. Anyway, from my perspective, it is interesting that we're obviously the leading proponents of this kind of technology. The people in this community fully understand it. We know how to implement it. It's easy. And yet there's just not the audience there at the moment. People appear to be struggling to get attendance to these events. There's obviously the dichotomy of having to watch this stuff whilst you're at home and the distractions that brings. So interesting stuff, but sadly no WordCamp US for 2020. Our next section is plugins, themes and blocks, and we've got quite a bit for you this week. I'll keep it brief in each case, but Fluent Forms 3.6.4, lots of new improvements and surprise goodies. So this is a Forms plugin. I've started using it myself. I rather like it. They have a new integration, Automizy, which is an email marketing automation software. Well, it's now configured to work with that. They've also got the ability to retry API calls and give some insight into what the failure was if they were unsuccessful. They've also got conditional text blocks. So, for example, you might now be able to show a message when a form is successfully completed with a conditional piece of logic. So, for example, if this particular field was filled in, you might like to display that back to him. If not, you might like to ignore that altogether in your response message. They've replaced Select To with Choices.js library. There's also the option to validate the uniqueness of text inputs. You can also have options to look at all the entries in a much more configurable way. So, for example, you might read only the ones that are unread or the ones that you have read or all of them. So they've got sort of filtering options in there, and they've squashed a few bugs, added a new tooltip style and various other things. So really rather nice. I do like Fluent Forms, so I hope that you guys check it out. possible users or users of the Brizy page builder, you'll be delighted that they've announced 2.0. They kind of missed out version 1.0 because they felt that they'd kind of got there a long time ago. There's a video on the homepage, but there's an awful lot of stuff that's coming in this release. The piece is entitled Theme Builder, Mega Menu Builder, Brizy Sync, Lottie, Tables and more, and there really is a lot in this. So for example, they've basically got themselves a full functional theme builder now with global block conditions. You can sync your blocks if you're using their cloud infrastructure. You can sync your cloud blocks with your WordPress plugin blocks. They've got a really nice, easy to use mega menu builder. Essentially, you build it on the page in front of your eyes and add columns and put maps and menu items and whatever else you'd like in there. They've got a nice option for tables now, Lottie elements. You can work in draft. That is to say, you can take a page from being published into draft. So you could, say, for example, make a slight amendment to a site, and rather than publish it, you can just keep the little modification that you made as a draft and keep the page published. You've also got the option to save and clear layouts with one click. So if you've built a page out and you think, oh, I just want to start over, you can just do that with one click rather than having to delete each of the modules one at a time. Absolute and fixed positions are in there as well. Images can now be adjusted by pixel as well as percentages, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I would urge you, if you're a Brizy user, go check this out. They really have got an awful lot into this update, so congratulations to them. Click on the link in the show notes to find out more. The next one is over on the Malcare website, and they say our most anticipated feature, one-click cleanups. So this is the idea that if you're using Malcare as your provider of choice for security on your WordPress website, they're making the claim that you can now do this with one click. The idea being that you don't need to go around searching for a bunch of credentials, run separate scans and FTP things here, there and everywhere. You simply click one button and you'll be notified of the progress of how things are going. I confess I have not used it, but you know, if they can live up to this would certainly be interesting. They make the claim that the benefits of one-click cleanup are that you can be hack-free in half the time, you can minimize website downtime, retain traffic and sales, it's as real-time as it gets, no credentials required and no technical knowledge needed. So maybe click on the link in the show notes and check it out. Okay, a couple of things related to Toolset. Toolset Types 3.4 includes a redesign for the database tables, which allows for greater performance and much better support for multilingual sites. Quote, Types 3.4 will allow you to create entries in any language. Until now, you could only create entries in the site's default language and translate them into other languages. Now you can create entries in any language and translate to any other language that you choose. So that's quite nice. Toolset are also on the lookout for some beta testers. They have a piece entitled Toolset Blocks 1.3 Beta tests the post relationships improvements. So that's exactly what they want. They have this blocks functionality and they want to see if they can offer better translation workflows for Toolset powered websites. There's some information on how you can get involved in the beta version. But if you are a user of Toolset and you wish to help them out, click on the link in the show notes. If you're in a team that creates content with a WordPress install, you may be interested in PublishPress. Now, they've been around for a while, but they've made a bit of an update this week. Their article is entitled PublishPress Checklists, now supports Yoast SEO, internal links and more. The idea of this plugin is that you set a bunch of criteria that your team must pass in order for a post to be publishable. So they've added the ability to have a particular number of characters in the title, so you can set a maximum or minimum. So in other words, if the title is too short or too long, and that would affect SEO, you can prevent it being published. You can also change it so that there must be some internal links, which is obviously, again, good for SEO. And if they don't occur in the particular piece, then the article could be unpublishable. And finally, they've linked with Yoast SEO, which is obviously a very popular SEO plugin for WordPress. And unless you pass their usability check, which if you've used Yoast, you'll know what that looks like. You basically need a green light on the different settings that Yoast has, and unless that is passed, you won't be able to publish it. So for teams, perfect. If you're an individual, you can probably do all this all by yourself manually, but obviously if you're saving stuff in draft and getting other people to finish it off and you need to know that it's done correctly, PublishPress, worth checking out. This next one is really interesting, I think. It's over on WordPress Tavern. It's by Sarah Gooding, entitled Bing launches URL submission plugin for WordPress. So to paraphrase, essentially you've now got the option to install a WordPress plugin, and as soon as you amend any content, it immediately notifies Bing, the search engine, that there is something which has changed. And the idea then is that they don't have to have their bots crawling around the internet for content on your site. If you've got the plugin installed, it will know for sure when content has been updated and therefore reduce latency. Just seems like a really interesting idea. You've got to generate an API key in order to configure the plugin, but bar that, that's pretty much all that you need to do. The plugin introduces a few other options for managing URL submissions. You can toggle the automatic submission feature on or off. You can manually submit a URL to Bing index. You can view a list of recent URL submissions from the plugin, retry any failed submissions, or look at recent submission lists, and download recent URL submissions for analysis. It just seems like such a sensible idea that when I click update, everything everywhere gets notified. Fascinating stuff. A couple of pieces now about WPMU Dev's Formulator plugin, which is a plugin to get WordPress forms on your website. The first one is all about an integration with FortressDB. The article is entitled New Formulator Integration, FortressDB for Data Privacy, Security and Speed. They mention in the article that in the past your data would have been stored in a WordPress database, which is really designed for the public web. Well, instead of using that database, this integration allows you to store FortressDB data on secure Google Cloud servers. You've got the option of choosing from Europe, the USA and the UK. And then the article goes on to explain why you might wish to use this and how it all works, and a fairly technical illustration of how you can secure your form data. So if you have any concerns around this, or you've got information in your WordPress database that is seriously in need of security, this might well be worth looking at. And also something similar, I suppose, they've now added an e-sign here option. It says e-sign here, the new Formulator 1.13 now features e-signature and more. And it's exactly what you'd expect. You can now add a field into your forms where people can, with their finger, write their signature, or there's the option, should they not be able to do that, to upload a pre-prepared signature as well. Again, the article shows you line by line how you need to set this up. Moving on to deals for this week. As always, before I list the deals, I'd like to re-mention the fact that we will email you. If you go over to wpbuilds.com/subscribe, there's a list over there that you can subscribe to, and we will email you a simple plain text email when we hear about a WordPress deal. There's quite a few people on the list and quite a few people benefiting from it. I've subscribed to just about everything to do with WordPress, and so it may well get you out of that little hole of receiving multiple emails from multiple companies. There's also an option on there to go to our WP Builds deals page. As I said, it's a filterable, searchable list of WordPress deals, and many of them have been there for, several years now, so go check it out if you're in the marketplace. New ones to mention this week is AppSumo's PWA for WordPress. This is the idea behind the plugin that you would like to have a mobile app without having a mobile app. It allows you to do things like have your WordPress website so that you can add an icon onto the home screen. Essentially, it mimics the functionality of an app on your iOS or Android device, so that looks quite nice. And there's also options on the page for other things, which I've bought some of them. Queebly Blocks looks nice. There's also Crello image editing, 3 months free, Flywheel hosting, Continually Chat, Brizy, 15% off cloud and the WordPress plugin, and 20% off GiveWP as well. The next section is to do with security. Very light touch on this. Only one piece this week on the WordFence website. It's entitled Critical Arbitrary File Upload Vulnerability Patched in WP Discuss plugin, and that's WP-DISCUZ or Z, depending on where you live. This plugin, which I confess I've not heard of, is installed 80,000 times, and this flaw gives unauthenticated attackers the ability to upload arbitrary files, including PHP files, and achieve remote code execution on vulnerable site servers. So go and check that out if that name rings a bell. The next bit is all about WP Builds. It's the hopelessly self-promotional WP Builds bit. I did a podcast this week with David Wormsley. We had a debate about whether from clients we should get the content first or ask for the content later. He takes one side, I take the other, and it's really interesting. There are, as always, a ton of different options around this, and you may or may not have fallen foul of this problem before. Should you put the brakes on and say, well, I'm not carrying on with this project because you haven't given me all the stuff? Should you even start the project before all of the content has been delivered? Or can you be more laissez-faire and a bit more accommodating and allow the process to iterate slowly? Check out the podcast to see what we think. Also to say, as I mentioned at the top, we have this Tuesday, we're going to be talking with Sabrina Zadan, 2 p.m. UK time at wpbuilds.com/live or in the Facebook group, talking about 0 to 10,000 installs of our plugin. This is part 7, and on Wednesday, 3:30 p.m, same URLs, Pictionary, dissecting some submitted WordPress websites to decide if there's any improvements that could be made from a UI UX point of view. You can submit your own at wpbuilds.com/UI. Now the job section is here, but I don't have anything in it. Just a reminder that I've integrated jobs into WP Builds, and there is a link in the show notes to a form. And if you know about a WordPress job, please submit it, and then I can just pop it into the news like this, and you never know, it might enable good candidates to hear about jobs that they may not otherwise find out about. So yeah, completely free. As I said, link is in the show notes if you want to submit a job. That's all the WordPress stuff I've got for you this week, but I've got a couple of pieces to do with not WordPress, which we always do at the end. Only a couple of pieces this week because I have been on holiday and I didn't dedicate the normal time to researching. But the first one is over on Search Engine Journal, called AMP and SEO, Everything You Need to Know. Took me about 10 minutes to read, but it was very interesting and illustrative. I don't really know a lot about AMP. I haven't really deployed it too many times, and certainly from an SEO perspective, I didn't really realize what the impacts were. So link is in the show notes for that if you too are interested in this. And the final one for this week, Google updates Search Console with more structured data support. And this is just to say that in the Search Console now, there is also support for image license structured data, which may be important if some of your websites are heavily image related. You may know that the official support for this kind of thing came out in February, but now you can see what's what in your Google Search Console. Right. That's all we've got for you this week. I hope that you enjoyed it. As always, if you found it useful or indeed not useful, any comments at all, please reach out to me. I'm available on Twitter at WPBuilds, no spaces, no hyphens, but you could shoot me an email, wpbuilds.com/contact, or just go into our Facebook group, wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and let me know. It really does keep the interest going for me when I get some interesting comments. So yeah, please do that. The WP Builds Weekly WordPress News was brought to you today by Kinsta. Kinsta takes managed WordPress hosting to the next level. Powered by the Google Cloud Platform, your site is secured like Fort Knox and runs on speed obsessive architecture. You get access to the latest software and developer tools such as PHP 7, SSH and staging environments. And the best part, their expert team of WordPress engineers are available 24/7 if you need help. Try a demo for free. Get 60 days at kinsta.com. And A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part, it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out at absplittest.com. Okay, hopefully you'll join us next Thursday for the podcast, next Monday for more news like this, and 3 lives this week, as I mentioned, Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Good grief, what's going on? Hopefully you'll join us for some of that. Take care, stay safe. Bye-bye for now.